something which we launched last year around the same time in run up to the celebration of International Yoga Day on 21st June. And similarly, we kicked this off a special initiative for yoga celebration and observing all of that starting this week on Monday. As part of that, we've already had a session on stress management by Dr. Riti Barwa yesterday, and I'm very happy and honored to have Aruna Arumugam also with us today, and I was chatting with her offline. So, very impressed with her experiences and background. So, just a bit more on her very rich experience. She comes with over 16 years of experience working in the field of mental health and emotional well being. She heads the quality content training and part of counseling operations at one-to-one-help.net. She has worked in the capacity of a teacher, trainer, supervisor, coach, and counselor. Aruna has masters in social work from Bhartiyar University, Coimbatore, and MPhil in psychiatric social work from NIMHANS, or National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, Bangalore, which is actually the apex center for mental health and neuroscience education in the country. Uh, she has started her career in counseling work, working for the tsunami victims and survivors in different districts of Tamil Nadu, Pondicherry, and Kerala in the year 2005. Uh, Her areas of expertise are mental health, relationship, marriage, trauma, grief, and work life. She also handles critical concerns such as suicide, abuse, harassment, etc. She's done variety of corporate programs with large organizations like Google, Microsoft, IBM, Deloitte, Tata Group, Bosch, TCS, quite a few of them, and we were exchanging notes on that just a little while ago. So very honored to have Aruna, and I'm looking forward to the session. Handing it over back to you, Saiba, and then to Aruna. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Deepa, for such a warm welcome. And just a reiteration, in case you are or your colleagues are unable to log into this live stream, we would suggest that you contact IT or check your internet connection. Otherwise, you can log in with your phone. And now over to you, Aruna. Please go ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome. Uh, a very good afternoon to everyone who has joined us here in order to understand the emotional well being, the mental health, and how do we attain the self care. Yes, as this has been a very testing, a very difficult phase for all of us. It's very important while we are taking care of our physical health. Together with that, taking care of our emotional health is also very, very important. Uh, as simple as that, when we are panicking, when we are feeling anxious, the rate of oxygen that we breathe in and breathe out does affect our emotional well-being, also our physical well-being. No? So as simple as that, as important as that, both physical and emotional well-being has to be taken hand in hand together to attain a holistic self-care. But in order to understand what is emotional well-being, what is a mental health, we'll have to understand or look through certain aspects of well-being. I know that I will not be able to have a direct interaction with all of you, but this is something for you to absorb, uh, talk it out among yourself, within yourself, and let me know, like, no, not let me know, you can look into what is your opinion or what is your choice from these questions that I've put in for all of you. So, this is to understand what is mental health and what we are going to look into. So, being healthy includes, these are the four options that I have given here. So, having a body that feels good and works well, having a healthy mind and body, not being sick, and all the above. So, when we look into, as I said, physically, our health is important, emotionally, our health is important, cognitively, behaviorally, all aspects of our health is important, and not being sick is also important. So, we'll have to go by all of the above in saying or naming us ourselves as being healthy. Yeah. Mental illness can occur only after a person has reached adulthood. So I've asked for a true or false here. It is false. Mental illness can occur at any age. Mental illness can be as simple as a fatigue, can be a burnout, can be anxiety, can be panic, can be depression. It can be anything. No? I will talk about some of the important part of mental illnesses in some time, but yes, it does start at any age for anyone. There is no difference in the class, creed, religion, age, anything for a mental illness to affect us. Yeah. Having a mental illness can affect the way a person is behaving or thinking or feeling, or is it all the above? Okay. Um, I know some of you may think that it is feeling. Some of you may be looking into thinking. So these usually when I conduct or ask my audiences, these are the two answers that I get. And some of you also would say all of the above. Yeah. So mental illness can affect all the three aspects of our um, uh, living, yeah, our being. The way that we think is the way that we feel. The way that we feel is the way that we behave. So all these three components are interlinked with each other's, and all these three does affect when a person is going through a mental health concern. Yeah. And if a person who is physically sick goes to a person, a medical doctor, a professional, a person who has mental health problems sees hope. Okay. Sometimes we talk to a friend, sometimes we talk to a family member, sometimes it is kept as a family secret and we are going through a mental health concern, sometimes it is brushed under the carpet, sometimes talking about in itself we feel stigmatized. So recently one of my friend like of my age was talking about how she is getting these very disturbed sleep and she has been getting very disturbing dreams, and she said that I think it's affecting my functioning, but I don't know whether it is a mental health concern or not. What should I do? I said, you need to talk to somebody. Yes, I have been speaking to my friend. I said, okay, what has been the result of that conversation? She said, just calm down and everything will be okay. I left it for a week and then I asked her, how is she doing now? She said the same. I've been trying to push it down. I have been trying to control it, but I have not been able to. And it's increasingly disturbing my sleep. Yeah. So there, an expert opinion is important. A person who knows about it, a person who has studied about it, a person who has been dealing with it. It can be a psychiatrist, it can be a psychologist, it can be a counselor. Any of them who all come under the mental health spectrum. They are all called as a mental health experts. Yeah. So what causes mental illness? Nobody knows about it. Nobody knows about it because for some of us it's our predominant personality which leads to certain, like, some of us are very anxious in nature, in our personality in itself. So anything that can trigger us can make us much more anxious. Maybe start avoiding things which is making us anxious. We may avoid social get-togethers. We may avoid talking to strangers. So a lot of anxiety leads to avoidance that in itself can cause some effect on our mental health. No, so some of it can be part of a personality, some of it can be genetic in nature, some of it can be the environment that we are living in, like, it can be an abusive environment or an environment which is in a panic mode, like the environment that now we are in, with a lot of uncertainty. Every minute, every moment there's a lot of uncertainty, even though things are changing now for better, but still there is always a panic mode. There's always a panic button that's there behind us. So nobody actually knows about what is the actual cause or the one cause of mental illness, as there are varied in different people. Yeah. And the least effective way of dealing with mental illness is to keep it to yourself. Keeping these feelings, these experiences these thoughts bottled up inside you, keeping it to yourself. That's the least effective way of dealing with a mental health challenge or a mental illness. No, it can be talking to somebody to begin with, whom you trust. Definitely, it can be a family member, it can be a friend, it can be a colleague, but that would not be sufficient. From there, maybe you will have to go on to meet the right person, maybe, as I said, any one of the mental health professional, and try to understand what kind of help would you need. you know so understanding that, and if necessary, if there has to be a hospitalization required for a brief period of time, that may be also a requirement later on. No, but understanding where do I have to go to, whom do I have to talk to or reach out to, is very, very important. So having a knowledge about it is very, very important. Yeah. So while we talk about all these things, there's always a fear that once I get a mental health concern, always I'll be ill. No, so that's like a label that the society has given, but it's not true. It's like a labeling. Once I have depression, or once I have anxiety, once I have any major mental health concern, I will always have that. No, no, it is not true. We can overcome it. Mental health concern is true, but it is treatable and we can overcome it. Yeah. So, what does mental health? While we are talking about all these aspects of facts and myths related to mental health, or certain knowledge part of mental health, when we look into it itself, is a broad, broad spectrum. No, it covers many aspects. One, when an individual is able to know what they can do, what they cannot do, what is my potential, no, that is called as a mental health. When one is able to understand, these are my stressors in my life, these are the way through which I can cope up with my stressors, these are the way through which, these are my resources when I have a problem, when I am like caught up between something, maybe to take a decision, or like, to talk to somebody about something very essential, I need to have that support. So am I aware about the resources that I have in terms of my support system, in terms of my own strength? No, am I taking out my day productively, fruitfully? Is it going on? Am I also being a contributor to my family, to my work life, to my community? If yes, yes, that the holistic, that spectrum is called as mental health, and this is defined by the World Health Organization. So while again we talk about mental health, it has, again, as I said, it's a very broad spectrum. When I was a psychology student, this is, I'm like not saying 1999, way back, uh, whenever my teacher used to talk about or any kind of mental health concern, all of us would feel that I think I have that. No, so relating, whenever we hear about something, whenever we learn about something, we immediately start self-diagnosing, thinking that I think I also have anxiety disorder, I also have depressive disorder, I also have OCD. No, so a lot of things that has become like Google it and diagnose it for yourself. No, so we all have gone through that. I'm sure all of us have gone through that phase. But to understand the continuum of mental health, some of us, as I said, in the mentally healthy, the positive functioning, healthy functioning part of the spectrum, which you can see the green side of it. The red side of it, you can see some of us are very severely affected in our with respect to our everyday functioning. Some of us are not able to concentrate, not able to give the right outcome for whatever work we are up to, either at home or at work. Yeah, some of us are not able to communicate what we are thinking. Yeah, some of us are not able to take up our relationship in a way that we had planned. Yeah, some of us are not able to control certain behaviors or certain thoughts in us. No, so those, that's the severely impacted. But in between, you can see a yellowish shade and an orangish shade. The yellowish and the orangish, most of us fall under, most of us. Why? Because we do have everyday stresses. We cannot run away from the stresses. Stress comes in ways of maybe finance, maybe work, maybe relationship, maybe health. The pandemic in itself brings in different kind of stress. And not all of us are sailing in the same boat. Not all of us are sailing in the same boat. We're all sailing in different boats. Why? Why are we all sailing in different boats? Because maybe I am living with my family, maybe somebody else is living alone, maybe somebody is living with their roommate, maybe somebody is living like no away from the family because they have to report, or their work scenario is like that. Maybe I have a family with me, but I do not have good support from my family. Maybe somebody else is away from the family but has a constant good support from the family. Maybe I'm going through a financial loss at this time, but somebody may be feeling that, okay, I think at least in this scenario I have finance, I have a good security in terms of my job, and I can work from home. So each of us have are facing the pandemic, but at the same time are all having different resources and different kind of stresses. So each one of us are in different boats, and when we look into each other boats, we think that they are doing better. No, so always there's a perception that I think I am the one who's going through this difficult phase. Maybe others are not, maybe others are coping up with it well. No, but we do not know, because each ports are different. Each of us are leading or facing the different stresses and dealing with different resources. Yeah. So this continent that I'm showing is to understand that not all of us are on this extreme and the other extreme, not the greener and not the severe, but many of us, most of us, I would say, are in between, whereby we are dealing with everyday stressors. Sometimes our coping is good, our support systems are good, so we are able to overcome. That's the yellowish. But on the other hand, the orangish side, we may not have the resources to cope with it. Maybe we are a single parent, maybe we are living alone, maybe we are living with family which is not supportive, maybe it's a work culture that I'm feeling extremely exhausted, overwhelmed, and stressed. So all these factors are coming under and making us difficult to cope with, or finding a resource to cope with. Yeah. While we again understand that, I'll go back to what I spoke initially, is the feeling, thinking, and behaving. Three aspects of mental wellness. Okay. If suppose, let's look into an example here. Okay. I'm walking by the street. I'm walking by the street. And on the other side of the road, I'm seeing one of my friend. I'm very overjoyed. I'm so happy to see this friend, because I'm seeing this friend after some time. Okay. And I'm trying to wave my hand at my friend, and my friend did not respond to me. What is that first thing that happens to you? Like, take 30 seconds and think about what is that first thing that happens to you when you are overjoyed and when you are responding to somebody with so much of happiness, and the other person is not responding to you. What may be that one thing that can happen to us? Yeah. We may feel embarrassed because there are people around us on the road. We may feel confused about why this person is not responding. We may be feeling angry. How dare he or she did not respond to me? We may be thinking, did something go wrong in my previous conversation or meeting with this person? No, I keep on thinking about various possibilities, what could have gone wrong in the past. Sometimes I may also just take up my phone and call this friend, thinking that maybe he or she was busy over something, thinking over something, or maybe on their phone, and maybe they did not notice me. No, that also happens. But most of the time, or the immediate first thought is that, why, what's wrong? Yeah. So the type of thought is it making me, if suppose I'm thinking, I'm thinking that, how did he or she ignore me? Why this person is ignoring me? If that is my thought process, my feeling will be, I may feel irritated, I may be feeling embarrassed, I may be feeling confused. Okay. And while I'm feeling that, my behavior may be also irrational. Okay, maybe I might snap it. Maybe if I'm on my way to a grocery shop, suppose, and that's when I saw this friend, and I'm being made to stand in queue for a very long time. If suppose I may snap out immediately because I'm like I'm not tolerant enough at this moment of time, because these overwhelming thoughts and feelings are happening in me. So my behavior naturally reflects that, those kind of feelings and thoughts. So the way that I interact with people at that time, maybe I'm withdrawn. I would not want to talk to people. Maybe I talk to people and easily I might get irritated or snap at people. Yeah. So these three components, the way that I think is the way that I feel, the way that I feel is the way that I behave. Yeah. These three are very, very important. While this is important, it's also important to understand that what are certain specific mental health concerns. Okay, to start with, stress, I think you all have had already a session about stress, and I think this will help you to understand this session also much more better. Okay, but still, I'll just go with one, showing you one slide about what happens to us when we are stressed, especially under this circumstance. So, what could be certain common reactions that is happening to us now? Okay, so one, feeling that things are out of my control. That feeling or that thought is leading to a lot more anxiety in me. I am feeling very uncertain about what's going to happen next. I'm feeling a sense of like, no, I've lost control and have been trapped. No, there is always a constant fear. Like, no, am I going to get affected? Is my family, is my work, is my neighborhood? Like, no, I'm always having a constant fear. Like, no, initially we were talking about certain consequences of people's life in different circumstances during this COVID situation. So it's overwhelming. And again, as I said, each of us are sailing in different boats, and each of us are having different stressors, different coping mechanisms, different resources to deal with what we are going through. Yeah. So some of us would want to talk about it. Some of us want to keep it to ourselves. We do not want to talk about it. We may think that what may people perceive if I talk about it. Feeling fearful to talk about it. Feeling like people might judge me if I talk about it. So all these feelings leads these reactions, responses in a reactive manner. Yeah, and predominant feeling of helplessness when I feel like things are not under my control, when I feel that things have gone extremely uncertain, I feel this helplessness. Yeah, I don't know who's going to help me, how they're going to help me, for what I would need help. So these are certain common reactions that is happening to all of us during this COVID time. And the final component, grief, which I'll be talking about in detail to all of you in my future slides. But yes, this is all normal. This is all, everyone is going through this. It's not you and me, but it's most of us who are going through this. Some of us are able to cope with it, some of us are not able to cope with it. Yeah, so what do I do about it is something that we are again going to see towards the presentation. But as I said, stress, in psychology we say that when I have a problem and when I'm stressed about the problem, I have two problems: my stress and my problem. Yeah, once again I'll repeat: when I have a problem and when I'm stressed about the problem, I have two problems: my problem and my stress. No? So when I get stressed, what happens to me? Like, take around again 30 seconds to think, reflect. What happens to me when I'm stressed? Some of us think may go through a migraine, a headache when we are stressed. Some of us get angry or irritated when we are stressed. Some of us just withdraw from everything when we are stressed. Some of us think extremely rapidly negative when we are stressed. Yeah, some of us are able to sleep it out. Like, no, we go for sleep and then we just want to avoid what we were thinking and we are all fine. Some of us eat, comfort eat, and deal with stress. No, so there has been significant changes in how we eat while we are stressed, the sleep pattern when we are stressed, the amount of coffee or alcohol or like no nicotine that we use while we are stressed is also higher. Yeah, and the problem is the same. While we are getting stressed, the problem remains the same. We are not dealing with the problem at all, but we are dealing with what happens to us when we are stressed. So it is always recommended that instead of getting stressed about something, put in all those energy and efficiency in dealing with the problem rather than dealing with the stress. Yeah. Second is anxiety. So this is also something that we have recently have been having a lot of employees, individuals who are reaching out to us and talking about they're feeling worried and fearful almost most of the time. And it is again, as I said, that it is related to the pandemic. Most of the conversation that is happening, the anxiety reported, is related to the pandemic. Okay, but how is it different from anxiety as a disorder? Okay, as something, as an illness. If suppose you look into, if I'm feeling anxious, like for example, think about the day before your appraisal. Think about the day before your appraisal. What are your feelings at that time? What are your thoughts at that time? Okay, what are your worries at that time? That is called as feeling anxious. I may be thinking that, okay, have I done it right this year? How is it going to be this year? What may be the feedback I may get? Like, no, I did a major error. Will that be reflected? Will that be projected very seriously this time or not? So I am counting on all these that has happened in the last year and brooding over these thoughts and feelings again and again and again. But once the appraisal is done, it depends upon how the appraisal went. But once the appraisal is done, then these feelings of anxiety comes down. Either it goes away or it reduces. So it is not anxiety as a disorder. So before a presentation, or like now when we are going out, like wearing a mask and going out in itself, we feel anxious, we feel stressed, worried, fearful. But that's not a disorder. What is a disorder as an anxiety is that this prevails. Whatever you do, you're out, you're inside the house, your appraisal cycle is there, you have completed the appraisal cycle, everything, either there is a threat outside, no threat outside, whether there is a trigger, not trigger, you feel anxious almost all the time. Okay, what happens to you when you're anxious? Physically, psychologically, and behaviorally. Physically, what happens to me? I feel like there is different pain in my body. If I might have a headache, I may have a shoulder pain, I may have a back pain, but I'm not able to tell you why I'm having a pain. I'm just having different kinds of pain, which is unexplainable. Okay, I'm not able to go to sleep properly. I'm not able to eat properly. Okay, I may be sweating, I may be hyperventilating, I may feel like there's a pain in my chest which I'm not able to explain. Okay, so physically, when I'm feeling anxious, when I'm having anxiety, these are the things that I may physically feel, go through, experience. Psychologically, okay, because I'm worried, I'm fearful, I'm tensed, I'm always thinking about the worst. I'm thinking, I'm apprehensive about what's going to happen. I'm preoccupied about what is going to happen or what has happened. No, I'm always thinking about the worst. Like, no, what if I fail? What if this is not going to go over? What if people are going to judge me? What, like, no, these what if fears are extremely high psychologically when a person is going through anxiety as a phase. Yeah, behaviorally. So naturally, when emotionally you're affected, physically also you're affected, it does show in your behavior. No, certain behaviors are to cope up. Okay, so certain behaviors like withdrawing, not talking to anyone, socially withdrawing, not communicating, not interacting, can be a way of coping when person is anxious. Another way of coping will be extremely talkative, like not talking out relevant, irrelevant, related, unrelated things to somebody to make us feel a little calm. No, again, it depends upon our personality. Yeah. Do we have a personality which is very social, or a personality which we are very introvert, or a personality which is ambivert? Even though we are social, we need our space. No? So it depends upon what personality that we belong to. These kind of what type of symptoms that we are going through when we are anxious. We cannot self-diagnose in any of these cases. We cannot self-diagnose. Yeah, so I will talk about what do you have to do, or how do we have to deal with it sooner. Okay, so behaviorally also these things are happening. Some of the behaviors are to cope with, some of the behaviors are naturally coming to us. Yeah, so we might avoid people, feel irritated. Sometimes we start cleaning up things and ordering things regularly, and we do it repeatedly. It's called as an obsession or compulsion, a behavior, repeatedly doing the same thing, or doing certain rituals every time in order to deal with the anxiety. Yeah, and if we don't do that ritual, then we'll start feeling panic, feeling anxious, feeling worried more. Yeah, so this is called as anxiety as a disorder. It's much more than fear, much more than worry, much more than feeling anxious. And it happens to a person most part of the day and every day, at least for a minimum of 2 weeks to 1 month. If a person is going through all of this for minimum 2 weeks to maximum a month, yes, definitely the person should be need to be talking to a mental health expert. Similar like anxiety, another component is depression, which we have to understand. It's necessary to understand. So these things when I talk about, it's not only for us to take care of ourselves, but also for us to take care of our loved ones, others who are around us, be it be our family members, be it be our colleagues, friends, neighbors, well wishers, anyone. Yeah. So while we saw about anxiety, what is depression? Okay, depression again, it's not for a day or two. I'm not feeling low for a day or two. I cannot name it as depression. Okay, again, the period is 2 weeks to maximum a month. There are certain symptoms that I go through. Significantly, three things: I feel helpless, I feel hopeless, I feel worthless. These are the three significant, very importantly significant symptoms when I go through depression. I feel that nobody can help me out from this. I feel that I'm not worth it. I'm not able to contribute for myself. I'm not able to contribute to my family. I'm not able to contribute at work, to my society. So, a feeling of worthlessness, you know, and a feeling of hopelessness, thinking that things are not going to happen the way that I planned, that things are not happening, things are getting out of my control. So, these three significant feelings, if it is there in your mind and if it is coming out in your behavior also, this is something that you need to talk about to an expert. Yeah, this feeling of low, feeling of sadness, together with you may be finding music interesting, but now you may not find music interesting anymore. Okay, you may be finding talking to one of your friend very interesting, but now you may not be finding that interesting at all. Yeah, you may be finding dancing very interesting earlier, but now you may not be feeling, you may have lost interest in that. So things which were pleasurable earlier. Now, if you're not feeling any kind of pleasure towards it, any kind of interest towards it, yes, it does show there is some sign of low mood, some sign of depression in you. So, again, like anxiety, it does affect our sleep, it does affect our eating habits, it does affect the way that we think, it does affect the way that we are feeling about ourselves. No? So, we feel helpless, worthless, hopeless. Yeah, our thoughts are very negative in nature. We are always thinking about the worst. So the thought, feeling, and behavior, all these three components again gets affected in any mental health concern. The way that we think, feel, and behave, it gets affected in any mental health concern. Okay, but again, talking about depression a little bit more, there is a cycle of depression that we have to understand. So, when I'm feeling low, when I'm feeling depressed, what's happening is there's a myth again, like, no, I would like to add before this a myth that a person with depression is always seen crying. It is a myth. A person with depression doesn't have to be crying. A person with depression can be laughing at themselves. They can be bullying themselves. They can be joking at themselves or others. No, it can be humor, can be a way of coping with depression also. Humor can be way of coping with depression. So not necessarily a person with depression is crying all the time. They can be functioning as like everyone, normally as everyone, but within themselves they may be going through these significant feelings. Yeah, so talking about somebody, talking about it is very, very important for us to understand what they are going through. We cannot look at a person and find out immediately what they are going through unless otherwise somebody is venting about, talking about what is going on in them. Yeah, so depression leads to an effect in our activity level. Like, no, we kind of become withdrawn, our movements gets restricted, we would not want to be part of larger gatherings or meeting new people. So there is a restriction or a reduction in our activity level, and more we look into being alone, being isolated. No, from there starts these brooding thoughts. There's something called as automatic negative thought. Automatic negative thought means anything that happens outside, anything that happens, we feel that we are responsible for it. We start blaming ourselves for it. We think that it is because of us this is happening. Automatically our minds start responding that you are one of the reason for it, or you are like no responsible for it. Yeah, so this negativity again leads to the feeling of helplessness, hopelessness, worthlessness, which increases the amount of depression that we are going through. And it goes on and on in a cycle unless we break the cycle. How do you break the cycle? Yeah, how do you break the cycle of stress, break the cycle of anxiety, break the cycle of depression? One very important aspect, and before I go to the grief, one very important aspect is having knowledge about each of this. Now, I'm not saying that we have to be an expert in this, but some amount of knowledge about what is stress, what happens to us when we are stressed, what is depression, what happens to a person when he or she is depressed, what is anxiety, what happens to us during anxiety. So, having knowledge in itself is one of the factors for us to break the cycle. Okay, together with that, I will be talking about few more other things, but yes, let's look into grief also before we move on. So now all of us are going through grief. It is not necessary that we have to be losing somebody from like no our like our family. It doesn't have to be, or it has doesn't have to be somebody that we know very well. It can, because we have been hearing about loss, death, dying every day. every day. It can be somebody from the other state, from the other district, from your neighborhood, within your family, at your workplace, different places and different nature of news that we have been hearing. So all of us are going through this something called as grief. In 2020, we were anticipating grief. Like, no, we were thinking or we were fearing, what if this may happen? What if I might get affected? What if I lose out on somebody, my loved one? Yeah. But now the anticipation has come on to we are grieving. We are grieving. It is a loss of something or someone. It is a loss of something or someone. And there is no right and wrong way of grieving. There's no right and wrong way of grieving because each of us are different. Each of our style of coping with things are different. Each of our personalities are different. As I initially said, some of us would want to talk it out, like, talk about it and then feel light. Some of us would want to cry it out. Some of us want to keep it to ourselves. No? So each of us deal with grief, loss in different way. Okay, there are different stages in grief. When somebody is going through grief, a loss of somebody or something or someone, we all go through different stages. Initially, we feel that it has not happened. We would want to isolate ourselves. We are shocked. We may show anger about why it has happened. Then we may start bargaining about why it has to happen to me, to my family, to my loved one. We start bargaining about it, and we feel helpless at this stage. I feel out of control at this stage. Yeah, and then go on to a low phase. After this few stages, I go into a low stage where I feel sad. I'm not able to control the reaction to loss. I'm keeping it private and subtle, but still I'm keeping on regretting, and my sadness is persisting. And then finally I come on to the stage of acceptance. Okay, not all of us go through all the stages again. It depends upon what we have lost, whom we have lost. It depends upon what is our nature of grieving. It depends upon when did the event happen, how did it happen, was it expected, was it uncertain. A lot of factors, a lot factors come into picture. Yeah, so the person can accept maybe in 2 days of the after the loss. Maybe the person can accept after 2 weeks. Maybe it is 2 months. Maybe for somebody it is 6 months. Maybe for some it's 1 year. No, so we nobody can define how long a person will grieve. It differs from person to person. It differs from the event to event. Yeah, but it is a process of healing. Yeah, this grief, the way that we are bereaving, it is a it leads to a healing process from the loss. Okay, while again we have spoken about anxiety, we have spoken about stress, we have spoken about depression and grief. There is depression phase in grief also, but depression as a disorder is different. This depression as a phase is different. After some time the person is going to overcome that phase without any kind of an external help, which is natural in grief cycle stage. But what do we have to do? That is the important aspect here. How do I cope? Okay, first, very importantly, understanding what is under my control, what is not under my control, and what are the things that I can influence. Three things: what is under my control, what is not under my control, and what are the things that I can, to an extent, influence. Influence somebody to motivate them, influence somebody while taking a decision, influence somebody to calm down. I can influence. I cannot change them, but I can partly influence them. Pandemic is something that is not under my control. even though I have been taking all the precautions, everything that has to be, but this is something that is not under my control and I cannot be running for controlling it, isn't it? So when I'm stressed, I have three responses. But I may fight with the stress, I may run away from the stress, or I may deal with the stress. Okay. And the fourth is I may freeze. I don't know what to do with the stress. The fight, fright, and flight. I'm fighting with the stress. I'm running away. That is a flight, running away from the stress, or I'm freezing in front of the stress. Okay. But with this pandemic, all these three options are not useful. It's not possible. What is possible is only preparedness and keeping things in perspective. I need to know what is under my control. If it is not under my control, I need to look into what should I do about it. If it is under my control, I need to look into how should I be prepared about it. Okay, so if suppose I'm getting infected, I'll have to look into who is that I have to reach out to and talk to. Because naturally I'm going to be anxious. Naturally I'm going to be fearful about it. Like, if I have to talk about me, this is my sixth week of recovery from being tested positive. I mean, from tested being negative. This is my sixth week now after I have got tested negative. So yes, initially when it all happened, preparedness is one aspect that helped. It helped my whole family. Okay, whom do I have to talk to? Which is the doctor I need to reach out to? Which is that app I need to download and keep it? What are the things that I have to do when I can be in isolation? Who is that I have to connect on an everyday basis? All this, write it down. Like, no, it's we don't have to feel being judged. Write it down and keep it somewhere for always. Not only for us, for anyone, for you to help with. No, very importantly, having routine and schedule in our life brings in a lot more change. We may think that we are all working from home, we can get up at any time, eat any time, but our work may not be changing. We have to log in at certain time, log out at certain time, be part of certain things at certain time, provide things for our dependents in our family. Yeah, so keeping a routine and a schedule for everything is important. Maybe pre-COVID, maybe we were waking up at 6, but now maybe we can wake up at 7, 7:38. But keep a time for yourself, at least 15 minutes of time for yourself every day. I'll tell you what we can do in that 15 minutes. Okay. So eating right, sleeping, at least having 7 hours of sleep is essential. So we all go through something called as revenge bedtime procrastination. All through the day I'm working. I have to have some time for myself. And when I log in into my social media, maybe around 10, 10:30 in the night after I finish all my work and household chores and everything, I unknowingly start extending my time, thinking that this is only me time that I have, but which is consuming my sleep time now. So it's called as a revenge bedtime procrastination. I'm like, no, postponing the time to sleep because I'm thinking that this is the only time I can get to spend myself for myself. Yeah. So keeping things in perspective also add to this, saying that if I extend my time here, my other part of health is getting deteriorated or affected. Sleep is also very, very essential for us. So keeping in mind 7 hours of sleep, one, keeping in mind eating on time, very importantly, eating right and eating on time is very important. Three, one part of the day, a 15-minute for a physical activity, a part of the day of 15-minute for an emotional health activity. It can be any kind of activity, which I'm going to show you in the next slide. Okay, but 15 minutes minimum. I'm saying, like, in this lockdown status, in this position where we are all restricted in one place, even though some of us have started traveling to office, but most of us have restricted activity because of the area that we live in or because of the nature of the work that we are having. Yeah. So staying healthy at this point of time and keeping uh, our contacts, our keeping in connection with our support system is very important. So talking is very important. Reaching out to a trustful person and talking is very important. So there is a hormone, a chemical in our brain called as oxytocin. I'll repeat, oxytocin. It's a chemical in our brain. This chemical is called as a happiness hormone. Okay, a love hormone, it is called as. Okay, how does it increase? By eye contact and by touch. These are the two ways through oxytocin increases in our brain, by eye contact and by touch, which you don't have to actually do it like a ritual. It can be done naturally any moment of time. While you're talking to somebody virtually or in person, having an eye contact and speaking increases oxytocin, the love hormone in our brain. Okay, which brings in happiness and which brings in calmness in us, not only in us, for the person who is also there, who is having that eye contact with us. The touch can be a hug, can be just a pat on the back, can be a handshake, yeah, can be sitting beside the person. Yeah, so touch is also very important, especially at this challenging time. This is something very simple, can be done at any, like, no, at any place, anywhere. Like, no, eye contact, you do not have to have a calendar separately for it, a time allotted for it. No, it is natural and we can do it at any time. Rituals, eating together, praying together, playing together, laughing together. These are all rituals which has to be part of our everyday life. Why is it important? So there is a chemical again in our brain called as endorphin. Okay, it is a painkiller. It's a natural painkiller, and whatever amount of negativity, pain, stress that we are going through in our head, when this togetherness, the cohesion comes in these rituals of eating together, playing together, laughing together, playing, praying together, playing together, this brings in a lot of endorphins in our brain, which naturally helps us to calm down. So rituals are very important. Doing rituals together is much more helpful. Okay, and while I'm looking into what I have to do, what I can do for others is also important. Okay, I know that I have a few more minutes only. Is it okay? I extend for around 10 more minutes. I have 5 minutes.
Yes, yes,
So,
it is
All
fine.
right, all right, sure. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So, how can I help others? Very importantly, listening to others helps them without stopping them, without advising somebody, without judging or being biased. Listening to somebody with a free flow is very, very helpful. Okay. Second, being empathetic. Being empathetic in the way of what you are talking, what you're communicating, and how you're giving them without helping them to take a pause, how you're going to give them a perspective indirectly. Okay, so listening, empathizing, giving them reassurances that I am there, we are all there with you. No false reassurance. Okay, no false reassurance. But whatever you're able to do, what you know that can be done, provide that reassurance to the person, and always, always connect the person with the right support system. If they need medical support, yes. If they need to talk to somebody, yes. If they need to help them with something to do with maybe a yoga, meditation, or some relaxation. So connecting with the person with the right support system is also important for self. While we are looking into once again self, the specific techniques to deal with our anxiety, stress, or any difficulty that we are going through at this point of time, especially with the pandemic. One quick thing, if I have to tell you, whenever you have any kind of an overwhelmed emotion, it can be anger, it can be anxiety, it can be irritation, it can be any kind of feeling or that is very overwhelming for you. If you have to calm down yourself, take two ice cubes. Take two ice cubes. Keep those ice cubes in your palm. Close your palm and just close your eyes. All your concentration is going on to your palm, the numbness in your palm. So all your racing thoughts, negative thoughts, everything is going to come down, and all your concentration is going to go into the numbness because you have that ice cube in your hand. This will help you ground, this will help you calm down. Okay, this is one thing that we can do, but not every day. At times, especially when you're not able to control certain emotions, anger or irritation or profuse crying, any of the emotion that you want to have a control over. One. Another one is conscious deep breathing. Okay, breathing we all do every time, every second. Okay, but consciously breathing. Whenever I'm sitting in a place, whenever you are like in a meeting, or whenever like you have any time, 2 minutes to 5 minutes, just closing our eyes and concentrating on our breathing pattern, the air that you inhale and the air that you exhale, just concentrating only on that helps a lot, helps a lot. But there's an additional technique of breathing called as 478. 478. On a count of 4, you breathe in. On a count of 4, 7 seconds you hold your breath, and for 8 seconds you let out your breath, you breathe out. 4 seconds you breathe in, 7 seconds you hold your breath, and for 8 seconds you're releasing the complete air in your stomach, in your lungs. You are letting that out. This breathing, conscious breathing, or this 478 deep breathing exercise will help us calm down. Like, we know that if we have to build body and if we choose to go to the gym, we know that it is going to take at least a month to 3 months to 6 months to show some significant changes in my body. Similarly, if I am choosing to do anything to relax myself, it may not show significant change for me immediately. Only if we do it consistently every day, it will be helpful for us in a long run, because my body will get conditioned to respond rather than react. Okay, because when I am calm, okay, I'm able to take care of myself as well as I'm able to provide help to others. Like in your, from your industry, like itself, if I have to give an example, whenever there is a crisis while you're traveling, your first instruction is to put on the oxygen mask for self, and then to help others with the oxygen mask. Similarly, any crisis situation, first take care of yourself so that you are able to provide that support to others. Yeah, so always remember about what are you thinking, why is affecting your feeling, and what is that behavior is coming out, so that you're conscious about your thinking pattern. That can help you. Your breathing patterns, your everyday eating pattern, sleeping pattern, very very important. Having rituals and routines are very very important. Talking it out to somebody whom you trust is important, but very very important, in spite of doing these things, still something is bothering you, something is affecting you, please seek professional help. Yeah, talk to a person who is an expert in the sector of mental health. It can be a psychiatrist, it can be a psychologist, it can be a counselor, but talk it out and seek support at the right time. So, those are my final few words, and thank you so much for being part of this.
Thank you so much, Aruna. Thank you. Thank you for such an insightful session. And I really appreciate you giving us tips to ensure overall mental well being through coping strategies and help seeking. Now, in the interest of time, I will only take up two questions because we will have to wind up. It's already three.
Sure.
So, the first question that I would like to take is how to give importance to self emotion over others and achieve emotional well being. That's the first question.
Right, right. So here I would just like to throw some light on something called as emotional intelligence. Okay, all of us have to be emotionally intelligent, but how? How do we become emotionally intelligent? Because emotional intelligence leads to understanding that I need to take care of myself. So understanding what I am going through, a simple exercise that it can help us increase our emotional intelligence is when you start your day, especially like, you know, suppose you're logging in, when you log into your work and when you log out of your work, just write two predominant feelings that you're having on that day at that time. You don't have to do anything about those feelings, but when you start doing this exercise, slowly you will understand that when I have these thoughts is when I have these feelings, when I have these feelings is my how my day goes by. Okay, so it starts naturally in you having an understanding that, so today I'm feeling little overwhelmed, maybe these are the things that I need to be more prepared about, because these are the things that has happened in the past. So being aware about your own emotions is very very important, so that you recognize that for yourself, and it's easy for you to recognize in others. So not only at work, but also in your relationship, when your partner, when your child, when your parent, when your sibling is going through something, it's easier for you to recognize what they are going through. So emotional intelligence is extremely important.
Thank you so much, Aruna. I'll just take one last question,
Sure,
which
sure.
actually has two parts to it. So, is anxiety normal during pandemic? I think you have already covered a lot of it during your presentation. But the question forward is, will it be severe later, or will anxiety lead to depression? That's the
Okay.
question.
Okay. So now, as I said, with the pandemic, it's natural for all of us to feel anxious. But when this anxiety is consistently affecting the level of our functioning at home, functioning at the work, functioning for our own self care, when it is being consistently affecting in a way that it is making us more dysfunctional, is when you have to start taking help. So don't start worrying, but you have to start taking help or talking to the right person. Okay. Anxiety, yes, there are certain possibilities, there are certain studies which says that anxiety can lead to depression if it is not treated. If your anxiety, if you're not able to manage your anxiety well, if you're not able to be treating your anxiety well, if you're pushing it down, if you're brushing it under the carpet, yes, there are some possibilities that it can get severe, and that severity can lead to another mode, another comorbidity called as depression.
Thank you, Aruna, once again. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you joining us and sharing your knowledge about mental health, especially during COVID times. Because as you know, this is inevitable and we can't help it. But you guiding us and helping us with all this was really great. Thank you once again. Thank you all for being part of this wonderful session. Hope you will take back home some good learning and apply it in your day-to-day life. And thank you once again. And I will now stop streaming. Thank you.
Thank you everyone.